Yeah, clearly there was no stopping Trump from making this address on this momentous day. We saw a heat wave which wouldn't stop him, nor did a thunderstorm that saw thousands of people being told to evacuate from the venue. This storm really saw Trump's speech postponed, finally taking place just an hour before midnight. Now, Trump told a crowd, which was half of the original size before the rains, that he wanted Congress to bring in legislation that allows federal control over election rules. Critics say those rules will just really make it harder for ordinary Americans to vote. Then once again, in 24 hours or so, he brought up communism all over again, saying it was like a cancer in the US, which the country needs to cut out fast. Now, Trump has been constantly referring to several left-wing Democratic candidates who have won several recent primary elections as communists. Experts say, though, that the comparison is wrong, as those candidates are more aligned with socialism and democratic socialism. Now, Trump made similar comments saying that communism in the US was a bigger threat than even 9/11. He made that in a speech on Friday as well. Now, all of this having the markings, as you said, of an election-styled rally. U.S. presidents, generally, they avoid in-person appearances at these July 4th celebrations to make sure that it's non-partisan. But critics say Trump has turned these 250th celebrations into this campaign-style politics, which they are vehemently against.
And look, we just saw on the screen as part of the bill, the dollar bill, as part of the 250 celebration, the U.S. is introducing dollar notes which will have Trump's signature. What's been the reaction to that?
Yeah, so U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he posted a social media message that Trump had put out earlier. So Bessent now announcing that the U.S. dollar bill featuring President Trump's signature will be introduced to mark this 250th birthday celebration. Now, in the U.S., traditionally, dollar bills, they bear the Treasury Secretary and the U.S. Treasurer signatures, not the president. So that, of course, not going down well with several of Trump's critics and the Democrats. Of course, Trump also wants his face, remember, on coins and bills. Federal laws ban a living person from being depicted on U.S. currency. Now, Trump has, as you might know, been eager to put his name and stamp on the U.S. Capitol here in Washington, D.C., and also in other parts of the United States as well. Trump's name has been added to the U.S. Institute of Peace, for example, also to this iconic performing arts center in D.C., which a judge ruled that his name be taken down now. Palm Beach International Airport in Florida also being renamed after the president. So there you have it, a lot of things that have happened in the past few weeks. And of course, this dollar bill with his signature that many say should not be happening.
President Donald Trump also said in his speech that the U.S. has wiped out Iran's military, and with a fragile ceasefire now in place, as we know, what's the latest on traffic through the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, Bloomberg reporting that there are signs of movement through this U.S. protected corridor, which is closer to Oman in the Strait of Hormuz. They're saying that 6 vessels have been spotted on today, Sunday. Remember that these ships who are transiting, they are basically doing so in the dark, which means that they're turning their transponders off, and they do that so that they're not digitally recognized or spotted by the Iranian military. Now, all of this coming after reports of ships being turned back on Saturday, yesterday, and there was no clear explanation as to why those ships actually took this U-turn. Now, Bloomberg reporting that over Friday and Saturday that at least 8 vessels were seen doing this about turn along the Omani coast. So they took the Omani route, but then they decided that they would turn back. 4 of them went to sail northwards toward the Iran route and then exited the strait. Now, we've seen and heard how many ships ever since the war have been warned by Iran over radio communications not to cross unless they have Tehran's permission. So perhaps some speculating that this could be one of the cases that they made it through Oman but got a warning from Iran and then decided to go towards Iran and then made it out through the strait. Now, despite the ceasefire between the US and Iran, the number of ships crossing the strait are, of course, nowhere close to those pre-war level numbers.
Okay, well, thanks for that update. And the last thing from my side, which is important to ask here, what do we know about a possible meeting between Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu that could happen within days?
Yeah, in speaking to Axios News now, President Trump saying that Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is pushing for a White House meeting possibly as soon as this week. It would be the first sit-down since tense Oval Office meeting back in February, if you might remember, when both the leaders during that time discussed their plan to attack Iran. Now, Netanyahu's office saying that the Prime Minister called Trump Friday to congratulate him on America's Independence Day, and the two agreed to meet soon. Remember, the relationship between the two leaders has really been strained since the war with Iran, though outwardly they both continue to maintain that everything is fine and they're very good friends. But sources telling Axios that many of Trump's top advisors now believe that Netanyahu, quote, was wrong about everything, unquote. Now, in the recent past, for example, Trump has also blasted the Israeli leader as being crazy over the escalation in Lebanon. Trump's words there, calling Netanyahu crazy a few weeks ago. Last month, you also have Vice President J.D. Vance telling Israel that it has almost no friends left in the world and that it should think hard before turning on the one it has. Now, the United States and Israel, they've diverged really on how to manage Iran, because Trump signed a deal extending the ceasefire with this MOU and restarting nuclear talks despite Netanyahu's objections. Now, as far as that meeting goes, we're hearing that it was meant to be happening, or a call was for it to be happening within days, but Axios also reporting that it could be pushed back further, perhaps next week as well.
All right, Allister, thank you for joining us here tonight on Asia One. Always great to have you in the studio and on the screens. I appreciate it.